Welcome to Pastor Andrew's Inspirations. If you enjoy these videos, please click on the red subscribe button below and the bell for more. Welcome to our online church, a congregation made up of many from around the world. No offering is necessary. Subscribing and watching videos will keep us alive under God's watchful eyes. Today we will be talking about biblical names starting with H, part 4. This part consists of 3 sections, and this is part C. Hagar. According to the Bible, Hagar was the Egyptian slave of Sarah, Abram's wife, whose names later became Sarah and Abraham. Sarah had been barren for a long time and pursued a way to fulfill God's word, that Abram would be father of many nations, chiefly since they had grown old. So she offered Hagar to Abram to be his concubine. Hagar became pregnant, and pressure arose between the two women. Sarah protested to Abram and treated Hagar bitterly after Abram's advice, that it was within her rights to do so, and Hagar ran away. Hagar fled into the desert on her way to Shur. At a spring en route, an angel appeared to Hagar, who commanded her to return to Sarah, so that they may bear a child, who shall be a wild ass of man. His hand shall be against every man, and every man's hand against him. And he shall dwell in the face of all his brethren. In Genesis chapter 16. Then she was told to call her son Ishmael. Afterward, Hagar referred to God as El Roi, meaning God of sight. God saw me, or God who appears. She then returned to Abram and Sarah, and soon gave birth to a son, whom she named as the angel had instructed. There is no direct mention of Hagar in the Quran, which does not declare her explicitly a free woman, or as a maid of Sarah or Abraham. Moreover, the notion of Hagar being a slave girl is denied by some modern scholars, who say that Hagar was the daughter of the Pharaoh of Egypt, thus making her a princess rather than a slave girl or a bondswoman. In the New Testament, Paul the Apostle made Hagar's experience an allegory of the difference between law and grace in his epistle to the Galatians. Paul links the laws of the Torah, given on Mount Sinai, to the bondage of the Israelite people, implying that it was signified by Hagar's condition as a bondswoman, while the free heavenly Jerusalem is signified by Sarah and her child. The biblical Mount Sinai has been referred to as Agar, named after Hagar. Augustine of Hippo referred to Hagar as symbolizing an earthly city, or sinful condition of humanity. In the earthly city, symbolized by Hagar, we find 2 things: its own obvious presence and the symbolic presence of the heavenly city. New citizens are begotten to the earthly city, by nature diminished by sin, but to the heavenly city by grace, freeing nature from sin. This view was illustrated on by medieval theologians such as Thomas Aquinas and John Wycliffe. The latter compared the children of Sarah to the redeemed, and those of Hagar to the unredeemed, who are carnal by nature and mere exiles. The story of Hagar demonstrates that survival is possible even under strictest conditions. Many artists have painted scenes from the story of Hagar and Ishmael in the desert, including Peter Lastman, Gustav Doré, Frederick Goodall, and James Eckford Lauder. William Shakespeare refers to Hagar in The Merchant of Venice, Act 2, Scene 5, line 40, when Shylock says, "What says that fool of Hagar's offspring, ha?" This line refers to the character Lancelot, whom Shylock is insulting by comparing him to the outcast Ishmael. It also refers to the conventional Christian interpretation by portraying the Christian character as the outcast. Hagar's poverty and fear are used as an excuse for criminality by characters in the work of Daniel Defoe, such as Moll Flanders, and the conventional view of Hagar as the mother of outcasts is repeated in Samuel Taylor Coleridge's play Zapolia, whose heroine is assured that she is no Hagar's offspring. Thou art the rightful heir to an appointed king. In the 19th century, a more caring portrayal became prominent, especially in America. Edamia Lewis, the early African American and Native American sculptor, made Hagar the subject of one of her most well-known works. She said it was inspired by strong sympathy for all women who have struggled and suffered. In novels and poems, Hagar herself, or characters named Hagar, were depicted as unjustly suffering exiles. These include the long dramatic poem Hagar by Eliza Jane Poitevin Nicholson. Her pen name was Pearl Rivers, president of the National Women's Press Association. Hagar in the Wilderness by Nathaniel Park Willis, the highest paid magazine writer of his day, and Hagar's Farewell by Augusta Moore. In 1913, this was joined by the overly feminist novel Hagar by the American Southern socialist and suffragist Mary Johnston's. Hall Caine gave the name A Son of Hagar to his 1885 book set in contemporary England and dealing with the theme of illegitimacy. A similar caring view prevails in more recent literature. The novel The Stone Angel by Margaret Lawrence has a protagonist named Hagar, married to a man named Brahm, whose life story loosely imitates that of the biblical Hagar. A character named Hagar is prominently featured in Toni Morrison's novel Song of Solomon, which features numerous biblical themes and allusions. In the 1979 novel Kindred by Octavia Butler, the protagonist Dana has an ancestor named Hagar, born into slavery. When we meet towards the end of the novel, as part of Dana's time travel back to Maryland in the 19th century, Hagar is mentioned briefly in Salman Rushdie's controversial novel The Satanic Verses, where Mecca is replaced with Jahiliya, a desert village built on sand and served by Hagar's spring. Hagar is mentioned along with Bilhah and Zilpah in Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale, a dystopian novel which centers around the woman whose duty it is to produce children for their masters, assuming the place of their wives in a rape ceremony based upon the biblical passage. In the recent book of non-fiction, The Woman Who Named God, Abraham's Dilemma and the Birth of Three-Face by Charlotte Gordon provides an account of Hagar's life from the viewpoints of the three monotheist religions, Islam, Judaism, and Christianity. In 2019, Nyasha Jr. published a book on Hagar entitled Reimaging Hagar, Blackness and Bible, which provides a reaction history of Hagar that focuses on clarification of Hagar as a black woman, and chiefly those clarifications of Hagar that are made by African Americans. Since the 1970s, the custom has arisen of giving the name Hagar to newborn female babies. The giving of this name is often taken as a contentious political act, marking the parents as being followers of resolution with the Palestinians and the Arab world, and is grimaced upon by many, with separatists and the religious. The meanings of the name were signified by the founding of the Israeli journal Hagar. Studies in Culture, Polity, and Identities in 2000. Several black American feminists have written about Hagar, relating her story to those of slaves in American history. Wilma Bailey, in an article entitled Hagar, a Model for an Anabaptist Feminist, refers to her as a maidservant and slave. She sees Hagar as a model of control, talents, power, and ambition. In the article A Mistress, a Maid, and No Mercy, Renita J. Weems disputes that the association between Sarah and Hagar exhibits ethnic discrimination aggravated by financial and community mistreatment. Hagar, bearing a child for an infertile woman, is an example of what is now called surrogacy or promised pregnancy. Except in Hagar's case, she had no choice in the matter. Critics of this and other aided reproductive technologies have used Hagar in their analysis as early as 1988. Anna Goldman Amaral, in Reproductive and Genetic Engineering, wrote of Hagar, within the biblical battle of the wombs, which lay the foundation for the view of females, fruitfulness, and sexuality in the patriarchal society. This was the biblical name starting with H, Part 4. Please stay tuned for Part 5. If you like these videos, please click on the red subscribe button below and the bell for more. Adonai Nisi, the Lord is our banner. God's blessings be upon us all.